Welcome to Module 10, Integrated Vegetation Management and the Virginia Pollinator-Smart program. In this module, we'll review the principles of Integrated Vegetation Management, or IVM, on revegetated landscapes, and we'll discuss how IVM is used in the Pollinator-Smart program. Those interested in a more detailed review of this topic are encouraged to read Chapter 5 of the Virginia Pollinator-Smart Comprehensive Manual, which can be found at www.pollinatorsmartva.org or by entering Virginia Pollinator-Smart Program into your favorite search engine. As we progress, it's a good idea to keep in mind the overall goal of the Virginia Pollinator-Smart Program, which is to create self-sustaining and high-quality pollinator landscapes that require minimal maintenance in the long term. For the types of target ecosystems in this program, an IVM approach to management is the most practical way to achieve this goal. For those of you who are wondering, what is IVM? The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency defines it as the practice of promoting desirable, stable, low-growing plant communities that will resist invasion through the use of appropriate, environmentally sound, and cost-effective control methods. This definition encompasses a management system that is captured by the diagram at bottom right, starting with clear goal setting and advancing through prescriptive treatments, the effectiveness of which is monitored and then used to adapt management strategies through time. IVM can use any combination of available techniques listed at top right that are determined to be most effective for a specific site, but the key to the approach is that it should minimize its own use in the long run. In other words, anyone adopting an IVM strategy should expect a significant level of upfront investment in terms of time, labor, and expense, but if executed properly, the vegetation should eventually start to manage itself. IVM was originally developed for transmission power lines in the Pennsylvania and New York State region to promote herbaceous perennial plant communities that would resist trees colonizing and growing up into the lines. However, as the principal authors of the IVM framework indicate, the approach is applicable to all systems where plants have the potential to be pests, which is why it's an important part of the Pollinator-Smart program. To understand why IVM works, we need to review a bit of invasion ecology. Okay, everybody, hang with me on this. Plants can be characterized by their responses to both stress and disturbance. To a plant ecologist, stress is defined as a condition in the environment that reduces fitness or growth, like low nutrient availability, drought, or low light levels. By contrast, a disturbance is a change in the environment that results in a removal of biomass, like a flood or human development of the landscape. Now, look at the 2x2 table at bottom left. Plants that thrive in stressful conditions are called stress tolerators, whereas those that thrive in disturbed conditions are called ruderals, which basically means weeds. Plants that live in low stress, low disturbance conditions are referred to as competitors, and they need to be good at competing because that's where everybody wants to be. Now, look at the graph at top left. In plant ecology, intermediate levels of disturbance are understood to increase species diversity, whereas low or high levels reduce diversity. By contrast, higher levels of stress are understood to promote species diversity. This might seem counterintuitive because stressful conditions should make it harder for plants to coexist. But the reason for this is that weedy and invasive plants tend to need low stress conditions to be successful. In fact, the perfect combination for an invasive species is high disturbance and low stress. The higher the stress, the more specialized a plant has to be to live under those conditions. And as long as the stress isn't too extreme, it sort of opens the door for more species with adaptations to live in naturally stressful habitats. Now, bringing all of this stuff together, check out the model at top right. Sites with higher levels of stress and intermediate levels of disturbance should be resistant to invasive species. And this is why IVM works, because it maximizes the potential for species richness by exploiting this stress disturbance dynamic in favor of native herbaceous species. Okay, if that was way too much ecology for you, let's look at it another way. In Virginia, without active management, most regenerating sites, in other words, sites that have been cleared and are revegetating naturally, would follow a pattern of ecological succession to a forest. And at each stage of that progression, the types of plants that would inhabit the site are incompatible with a land use like a solar facility. If for no other reason, then they can be expected to grow taller and eventually shade out the panels. Tipping the scale even further in the direction of invaders and weeds is the fact that most solar facilities are sited on post-agricultural landscapes or landscapes involving tree clearing. Agricultural fields are prime real estate for aggressive species, like the image top right, because on the one hand, they're disturbed by activities like tilling and harvesting, and on the other hand, they are low-stress environments. And this is because they have high levels of resources that plants need, like soil nutrients and sunlight. Likewise, tree clearing is a type of disturbance that opens the door for invaders, and the resulting forest fragmentation creates more available space for aggressive plants like the Chinese privet and tree of heaven that are colonizing the recently cleared site in the center image. Even if weeds are actively managed on a solar facility, there are usually invasive species nearby that represent future volunteers on the site because the conditions are primed for invasion. Take, for example, the image at bottom right, which shows the invasive beefsteak plant waiting in the wings to invade the solar site in the background. The potential for risk of future invasion by a plant like this is just the type of thing that can be evaluated during site suitability analysis. And viewers are encouraged to take a look at Module 3 for more information on that topic. All of this is to say that an IVM strategy is one that is designed specifically to promote desirable species while keeping the bad actors out. For a successful Pollinator-Smart implementation, we recommend the following strategies. Unless there are extreme soil fertility issues, avoid soil amendments that will increase nutrient availability, which again will tip the scale in favor of weedy or invasive plants. Conduct mid-season site inspections to determine management needs. Keeping up an active surveillance on the site, particularly in the first few years, will promote a proactive rather than a reactive posture with respect to vegetation maintenance. Schedule mid and late season mobilizations to treat undesirable species. Again, the idea here is to be targeted and prescriptive with management techniques before weeds and invaders can be allowed to get out of hand. Oversee with native species as appropriate, which can be done at low cost after the initial planting phase of the site. Occasional mowing to reduce above-ground biomass, which will be important in the first few years. For more information on recommended mowing frequency, see Module 8. And finally, annual monitoring and adaptive management, strategies that are at the heart of the IVM approach. Okay, that's a wrap on our discussion of Integrated Vegetation Management and the Pollinator-Smart program. Thanks for tuning in. If you have any questions at all about the content presented here or any other aspect of the program, please drop us an email at pollinator.smart@dcr.virginia.gov. We'd love to hear from you. And with that, we'll see you in the next module.